Good morning. Welcome to Vlogmas Day 5. I'm not in focus and I'm very sleepy. But the kids are gone, so join me on my fashion show. Let's go milk some goats. Good morning, everyone. Jean's already hollering to be let out. We finally made it. So now, this is Lola. She's got actually pretty good teats. She's probably maybe my number 2 out of the 4 that we got. Oh, baby. So I milk directly into the stainless steel bowl. So it's much easier to clean. There way less is the chance of bacteria. It has to be really little because, as you can see, they're not very big goats. So anything too tall wouldn't fit underneath them. But once I'm done milking her, then I will pour it into the larger gallon milk bucket. In case you're worried, these are called hobbles. They are connected at the back. They're kept pretty loose. Let's just keep her from kicking this over. Because even though there's a saying that there's no crying over spilt milk, sometimes after an hour of milking, someone knocks us over, you feel like crying. Good job, Mama. Good job, Mama. Alright, now I gotta get her out. Usually I have to lock them in. I forget what the head stall, I think this is called. Elias came up with, well, technically, I saw this laying on the ground and I wrapped it around one day and used it, but he threw on a carabiner and screwed it in so we can lock them in more effectively so it's not super loose. She didn't need it because she is super food motivated, and now I just need to get her big old head out of here. Huh, Mama? Because you like food. But I need you to stop eating the food because it's not your turn anymore. This is Luna. She's one of the sweetest goats we have, but my absolute least favorite to milk because her teats are like, no exaggeration, this big. All of our goats are first time fresheners, which means they all had their first round of babies. This is their first time being in milk less than a year ago. And so we just put the bucket back in with them. So we'll probably get some babies out of them probably around the time that I'm due, which, you know, should make things nice and interesting. So everything's gonna be a lot smaller on them, especially when they're so new at this. Oh, Mama. But as you can see, I did go ahead and lock the head stall on her because she's a little more squirrely. But you can see how tiny her teats are in comparison to your fingers. And you can see why Elias probably wouldn't be good at this because his hands are too big. So the first thing that we do is we wipe off the udder to get any dirt off, give him a nice little massage early in the morning. This also helps to get any of the loose hair that could potentially fall off on this and not in the milk. And then we do something called stripping, where we're removing the wax plug or seal that's happened in the teat overnight. You can see you're basically in the same position as the last goat. And she's so much smaller. You can just see more of it. She's shorter too. So I have to get pretty low on her. And milking a goat is very different than milking a cow. You can see how I'm like almost pinching and then pushing it down. Whereas milking a cow, you can just pull down. You won't get as much milk out of a goat, especially a little tiny Nigerian. So you have to Get a little creative, especially when they're short like this. But our milk stand is set at a height, yes ma'am, that works for the girls because they do most of the milking. So for me, it doesn't quite work, but that's okay. And that's why she's hobbled. This is Cookie. She's got my favorite teats of the whole bunch. Just nice, long. She's super easy to milk. She's a sweet baby. But I'm gonna go ahead and leave the milking montage here, otherwise I'm running out of battery. Oh, maybe. Sometimes putting your face on just makes me feel more prepared for the day. I don't know why I got Southern. I have a ton of sourdough discard. So basically, if you're not in the world of sourdough, which feels like a very complicated world to get into, so take everything I'm about to say with a grain of salt. But when you feed your sourdough, sometimes you use it. Like you feed it on purpose so you can then use it in a recipe. Sometimes you just have to feed it so you can keep it alive. Which is why a lot of people don't even get into sourdough, because it's just another thing to keep alive, especially when you already have children or plants or animals. It's just another breathing thing, basically, to take care of. But recently I've discovered that you can feed your sourdough and then save the discard, the extra that you potentially would typically pour out, for other recipes. So today I think, because I have, golly, I don't even know, what's that, 3 cups? I think I have 6 cups of discard, just waiting, just sitting here. So I think I'm gonna try to make some crackers and something. Today I'm gonna try to put together sourdough Cheeze-Its. I'm so very excited about that. You can use the discard for biscuits, you can use it for a lot of different things. And basically the discard's like a much runnier version. You can't see, why am I trying to show you that? A much runnier version if it's been sitting in the fridge for a while. So it's not the same robust, bubbly sourdough starter that you see when you are starting your bread or feeding your bread or whatnot. So, I mean, if I'm sitting at 6 cups of discard, I've got a lot of stuff to figure out. Sometimes I will literally just give it to the dogs or to the chickens because it's wild, good bacteria, it's good for the body. And then other times I'm like, oh, I'll save it. And unfortunately I saved it for just like a teensy bit too long. So first up, I'm going to do Cheeze-Its. It only calls for half a cup of discard. So I might double the recipe, just so I can get through this. Calls for a 1/4 cup of Parmesan or sharp cheddar, plus additional to top, and a couple other ingredients. So I think maybe I'll do a mix of cheddar and parm, because I think that'll taste really good. I'm really excited. Where am I going with this? Nowhere. All right, let's get y'all set up and get cooking. Okay, so while I've got that resting over there, I still have so much discard left. I just found another one for pizza dough that you can freeze. This is gonna be huge because obviously the kids aren't here today. And we have all of these gorgeous cherry tomatoes that I actually had to yank out of our garden, gosh, a couple weeks ago, I think, because I knew we'd lose them. We were getting our first freeze. So I do need to go through and pull all the yellowing and orange and red ones out. So they've just basically been living in this basket since I pulled them. And they've just been moving around my kitchen or pantry for nigh on a month now. But if we could make our own pizza from our own sourdough starter with our own tomatoes, I think the kids would just, oh, and with our goat cheese, I think the kids and I would lose our minds. So that's a goal of mine. I'd like to get that started. Plus I think the kids would have a really good time making that. So I'm gonna do kind of like a, I hate to be the person that's like, I'm gonna take the recipe and like not follow it, but I think I'm gonna do that. This one requires some more intensive kneading. I'm gonna do it the way that I typically do my sourdough bread. By the way, I need to check on this. Yesterday I fed it thinking like, oh, it'll be fine. Is this off? I don't know if you were here yesterday when I fed it to hopefully make bread yesterday, and it wasn't ready until super, super late last night. So this is getting a little, maybe a little too warm in there with the oven light on. So I'm gonna leave that open just to keep the temp down. Don't want it too much. Oh, I should put a thermometer in there. This is chaotic cooking with Jamie. Goodness gracious. Get my cheese thermometer in there. And then get y'all set up for making some sourdough pizza dough together. So I've never made pizza dough before. I've worked with sourdough a number of times, not a lot. I'm not an expert by any stretch, but this is super wet. Like my gut's telling me it's too wet. Like I should be adding more flour. That doesn't make any sense. I went according to the recipe and I went to read it to see if there's any comments on it and I didn't see any. So I think in the last clip I know in the last clip I was like, oh, I'll just treat it like I normally do. I can't. Because this is like the wettest dough I've ever. Look how quickly it just kind of like pours. Do I go with my gut and just add more? Yes, I'm just gonna go with my gut and add more flour and keep mixing. Here's to hoping that was the right choice, but that's way too high hydration, too much water. There we go. Even that feels better. See, at least now it's like a more dough-like, a little bit. Today is kind of inadvertently turning into Jamie's not leaving the kitchen all day. I ended up kind of starting to go through some of our leftovers that are in the fridge, and I'm like, there's some fuzzy things in here that are not supposed to be fuzzy that we'll need to get rid of. Stuff like that where I'm like, okay, this clearly needs some of mom's attention. Not dad's, not kids, mom's. Because there's stuff in here that I'm like, yep, that's not, I'm not even gonna show you. It's so bad. Which the dogs loved it. Yep, there's wow. The dogs love days like today because if it's, well, and the chickens. Because if there's some sort of leftover type situation, then it is not beneath me to let, well, I will end up tossing a bunch into the scrap bucket for the chickens to have because it's fine. Chickens can't process moldy food, so that's something to definitely be aware of. So it's not like we don't just give them everything. Also, sometimes I'll just let the dogs clean bowls or plates on for me because they're about to go in the dishwasher anyways. I think it's fine. Next up, I am going to be throwing in the ham bone with some of my scraps to make some ham stock. So I'm gonna toss it in this bad boy. I absolutely love ham stock specifically for whenever I'm doing mashed potatoes. There is something about...
I'm so full.
Well, you ate a ton. There's something about the ham stock with, like, in potatoes that just adds a subtleness to it. I think it's so good. I don't think you like it as much as I do.
No.
No, I think that was your first appearance on the vlog today. I literally think like this whole vlog has just been me by myself.
It is. It's gonna be so boring.
It's...
I'm kidding.
But here's the thing is, I don't think you are.
It's gonna be the most popular one because it's all you. And that's why people are here. Go away.
He's talking to the dog.
Put my socks on. Go away. Go.
Bonnie is very much just slowly becoming more and more in love with Elias. We got her for my birthday, and for some reason, there's something about Elias that she just cannot get enough of. Oh, and then just chew on each other. That's fine. Look at Pepper. You okay, Pep? You okay? And Bonnie will smile at Elias to try to get her way.
Yeah, it works a lot of the time.
It does. She doesn't do it to anybody else, but she'll basically just show her teeth a little. Are you gonna sit on her? Why do you keep doing that? I'm so glad I caught that on camera. He keeps doing that for some reason. He'll just like back up and sit on her. Be like, I don't know how to win this. I'm just gonna sit on you. And then sad Pepper all by herself. Oh. It's okay, baby. Oh, you're giving affection. Oh no, you leaned over. You nuts. All three of you. Okay, wait, use a nice voice with Pepper.
Oh, good, Pepper. Good. Oh, no. Not that. No, not that nice. They're too interesting right now.
Yeah.
Usually, Bonnie would run over and attack Pepper. No, nope, that's my affection.
You're not allowed to receive affection. Oh my goodness, Pepper's blonde spots on her back are so funny. They show up so much on camera. So between the sourdough starter, ideally coming to like rising in there, and then the Cheeze-Its, and then the pizza dough, and now this, and my sink was cleared. It was literally cleared.
Sorry.
How much did you eat?
2 pieces of pizza and a plate of pasta.
Oh.
And dessert.
Carb overload? And dessert. Oh, that's right.
And coffee and water.
Okay. My sink was completely empty before I started all this. So we're just going for it, man. So I'm trying to figure out if I should get some of the ham off the bone. Nah, I'll just toss it in as is, as I'm still pulling some off the bone through the bag. Let's do this. You guys have seen me make this a bunch of times where basically I save onion skins, garlic skins. There's so many nutrients in these. There's also, I've got green onions in here, carrots, celery on top of the ham bone, and then I just added some trace mineral salt in there as well, just to get like a little extra nutrition. I turned it all the way up high to get it to boil. Basically get it to a pretty high heat and then turn it down, and this will simmer on the stovetop for the next day or two until I strain it. There does reach a certain point where it kind of starts to stink a little, where I'm like, this is less fun to smell. I don't feel that way as much about the ham one. Sometimes chicken stock, I'm like, okay, it's time to strain it, just because I don't want to keep smelling this anymore. But it's such an excellent way of taking trash and getting nutrition out of it. Y'all know I'm such a nerd about this. Such a nerd about this. But I still have more stuff to hand off to the chickens, and clean, and I don't think that's bad, but I think we're just gonna get rid of that anyways. I don't remember last time we used that. And then I've got to fill up our next milk container. Let's do this. We like to rotate our milk, not rotate. I love these containers from our milk. We actually got 2 of them. Someone wrote on this. We got 2 of them from Goodwill, and they are the perfect size. I think they're anchor hocking. Yep, they're so great. I love these. But since, as you saw earlier, I strain directly, or we all strain directly into these half-gallon jars, which are great. Obviously I had water in it for the stock because our Berkey moves super slow, so sometimes when I have time, I'll just fill these up and stick them in the fridge. This is a way better space saver. Someone recently asked me, genuinely, not just like, so I get this question all the time, but no, genuinely someone recently asked me like, how do you know all of this stuff? And I don't. I just have a bunch of questions and the Google app. Like, I genuinely hate food waste. I hate throwing away food, so I'm always coming up with ways to try to reuse it. Or is there another recipe I can use this in? Or, I mean, obviously with this moldy, like, it's gone. But is there anything else I can do before we get to that point? So I've got a couple loaves of sourdough on the counter that the family just stopped eating. They go through phases, like with bananas, where they kind of eat them and then they don't eat them. So I have a ton of bread on the counter. And so immediately I'm like, boom, breadcrumbs. I could also potentially use stale bread for stuffing, but I don't want to have to worry about any of that. That's above my pay grade for today. Like, here, let me show you. This giant hunk of bread is all dried out. This is all dried out. And this is all dried out. A little rosy on the bottom. So I'm sitting here and I'm like, okay, I would love to make something out of it. Probably not gonna be stuffing because that's too labor intensive and I don't wanna worry about freezing it. I was like, oh, you know what I should do? I should make breadcrumbs. So I'll just put this in a food processor, blitz them, toss them in the freezer because it's basically like fresh breadcrumbs. But my biggest issue when it comes to food storage is I need things, as many things as I can figure out getting shelf stable as possible, I'm gonna do. So it turns out I can actually throw these in the dehydrator. Now, they're pretty tough already because they've been sitting out for a few days, so it'll be interesting to see if I can slice them. But if I can get these into the dehydrator and then throw them into the food processor afterwards, then they're shelf stable. As opposed to just kind of pulverizing them as is and tossing them in the freezer. It just depends on the moisture level because the moisture is what's gonna get the mold in this situation. So as far as knowing all of these things, I don't. I just researched the heck out of it. So like my gut felt like a couple years ago, I'm like, there's got to be like some sort of benefit to onion skins. There's gotta be some sort of benefit. And sure as heck looked into it and there's a ton of nutrients in there. So I saved them and I saved the scraps from all the other root vegetables for stock. And just continuously like keep saving them until I have a protein to go with it or I can make a vegetable stock. So all to say, I have no idea what I'm doing until I Google it and then I try it. I think I just have a naturally like super inquisitive mind, or I'm just really, really against waste. So it's not this is just something that's taken years to figure out and years to put together. This will be brand new. I've made my own breadcrumbs before, but I've made them to immediately use. I have not made them and stored them. So I think this will work. I don't know, but it looks like I might have to pull my dehydrator out, see if I can get these cut up. And then it says dehydrate for 4 hours, but these, I don't think they'll need 4 hours. They're pretty dry. They're pretty dry already. So if I can cut them, we're gonna go with that method. If I cannot cut them, then I might just go straight to food processor, toss it in a bag, and see how that works. Because I don't have any mats in my dehydrator to dehydrate the crumbs once they're crumbly. But I wonder if I can make my, see? I wonder if I could use parchment paper in the dehydrator in lieu of any sort of like, because mine has like grates. So if I could do something like that, then I could pulverize these directly. So now I'm actually gonna go research that. You know, it may be only my face today, but I'm gonna take y'all on a journey, all right? I am just going to, we're gonna figure this out together, because I really don't want to try cutting those. That's gonna stink. Or at least not slicing them so they can fit into the dehydrator. All right, I'm gonna go Google it. Let's find out. As I suspected, it's totally possible, but I think I still need to cut them. The goal is to get them as dry as possible, because if there's any moisture left, again, based on my reading, from what I understand, that's where all the mold's gonna come from. So I'm gonna go ahead and give it a shot. Worst case scenario, this bread that's already trash gets thrown in the trash in a couple months if any mold happens. I could feed this to the chickens, but they already just got a bunch of bread from leftovers already. So I'd love to give this a try and see if I can make it work. Yeah, so let's go see if I can actually get it to cut. If not, then I'm just gonna like cut it into big chunks. It looks like it needs to be no thicker than 1-inch pieces. I can do that. I can do this. We can do this. Let's go. And then I'm gonna do a big proper cleanup, get the rest of the stuff off of counters. So it feels nice and done and clean in here. But let's make my last big mess before moving on. I'm gonna go ahead and call it here. That is the 2 lobes that were already cut into. I'm gonna leave this one for now, simply because honestly my hand hurts. Now from what I read and understand, you can absolutely dehydrate in the oven if you need to at 250 for, I don't know exactly how long. Give it a goog. But since I already have my starter in here, ideally grown a little bit. I fed it at about 10 a.m. It's been about 6 hours. I've gotten it here and I've, see, temps about 70 in here, which is good. I would rather have my starter grow in the oven because I don't have anywhere else to put it, and bust out my dehydrator for making breadcrumbs. So you do not have to have any sort of high-tech or fancy equipment. In fact, you can leave this out on the counter and let these dry on the counter as well. Again, according to my research. But I don't have the patience for that, nor do I want to waste my counter space on something like this either. So because I do have the fancy machine, I'm gonna use it. Here we go. You're experimenting right alongside me. I have no idea if this is gonna work, but I have it set at 158 for 4 hours. The way I see it, I'm like, you can't over dehydrate breadcrumbs, right? Like, they could be absolutely bone dry. That's the point. So I'm gonna try that. I'll keep checking on them because I love obsessively checking stuff like this. This is what I do, but I'm also very glad I didn't do that last loaf because I wouldn't have had room for it. So I think I'm probably actually gonna take a few minutes, try to sit down, drink some water, see if I can get these little crampy things to calm down a little, and then maybe get some more picking up done because I made a mess with the trees yesterday, pulling them out and trying to figure out which ones I wanted to use where, and then just stopped. So sit for a minute, drink some water, and then get back at it. Remember when I was like, I'm gonna go sit down for a little bit? I did, but I did it to import yesterday's footage for the vlog and today's footage. And then I got back up and I'm doing a make ahead apple pie filling. And now we're back for our Cheez-Its. This is what our Cheez-It dough is currently looking like. So I need to roll it out to be 1/16 of an inch thick. And then transfer it onto a baking sheet. But because I doubled the recipe, I need actually I could probably do it on one of the big baking sheets. Super clean, don't worry about me, everything's fine. So I'll get that going. I did end up, I don't know if I've kept you up to date, but my starter's grown quite a bit. I autolyzed the dough, which means or the flour and water, so I've pre-mixed those. So the process for this, I'll need like 2.5 hours for-ish. So I want to start this like no later than like 8:30. But I'll leave this here for a minute. Actually, I'll put it back over here where it's a little bit warmer, just so it keeps growing. And now we're gonna roll out our Cheez-It dough. And after that, punch down our pizza dough. I have no idea what I'm doing and I hope this all works. And then that gonna freeze those. Here we go. So I still have no clue what I'm doing with pizza dough, but the sourdough crackers, oh, they're coming across a lot more brown on the screen. I basically just threw them back in because they didn't look cooked enough. Here's what some of them looked like before. Just looked a little doughy. So I tossed them back in. I might have left them in for a little too long, but they taste so good. They taste like Cheez-Its. Now, I thought I rolled them thin enough. Let me see if I can. For sure did not. I know it wasn't focused, but you get the point. So I'm gonna get these off real quick before they continue cooking. But with how easy that was, yeah, buddy. These are so good. Wrapped in saran wrap with a little bit of olive oil on it, and then I wrote the website I got it from and all of the instructions just in case. Now I'm just gonna stick this in the freezer and hope for the best. I don't know if it's gonna work. I've literally never done this in anything like this, but really and truly because the crackers turned out so well, I just feel like today's such a win. So I'm gonna put those in the freezer and we'll consider it a win for another time. Just like, I've won in advance, but if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, and that's okay. We'll just have to start them early enough, or maybe do them for like a lunch or something instead of dinner. And see how it goes. Because I think this is enough to make 5 thin crusts. Wait, I don't know, I'd have to double check the recipe. Like 5 or 6 thin crusts, but if I chose to make a little bit beefier or a little bit bigger than they had designated, which I'd probably bake on this or on our big old stone, like cooking stone, I could probably get something a little bit bigger than like the 10 to 12 inches they quoted. So I would rather have slightly bigger and feed a couple people instead of just all personal pies for everyone. So now I just gotta get us in the freezer. And last but most certainly not least, I'm just gonna get this done, get it over with, at least get it started. Do you like how I left my oven open to warm me up a little? It's so cold out today, I love it. I am going to, so I autolyzed my flour and water. I do a no-knead recipe when it comes to sourdough because it seems easier to me, even though I have to go through and stretch it every half an hour for 2 to 2.5 hours, depending on the temperature. That's fine. I am happy to do that. I don't even care. So I'm gonna go ahead and add in my starter and my salt, get this going, and then mix it thoroughly and then stretch it every 30 minutes. I'm just gonna go ahead and toss in the recipe, if I can recall. I'm gonna go ahead and toss in the recipe for where I got my sourdough from, like my sourdough recipe from, and let y'all decide if this is something you wanna do. I personally love it. I like it this way. I love not kneading. Makes my life a lot easier. And I love just having bread on hand all the time, even though sometimes it's not a success and sometimes it turns into breadcrumbs. But also I checked on them and I don't think they'll be done at 4 hours. I should have cut them into smaller pieces. But my hand hurt. So we're just gonna do this. And I'm gonna, I've thrown you in so many time lapses and like musical things today. So I'm just gonna turn off the camera, do this real quick, and then go sit down. Like for real sit down, pinky promise. Okay, I fed Joe and tucked him away in the fridge where he will live for the foreseeable future. So usually I can get away with feeding him and then leaving him in the fridge for about a week. Any longer than that and he'll start to go bad and I have to like reinvigorate him again. So Today's Saturday. Yeah, I'll probably end up making some more sourdough before next Saturday. If not, I just pull him out and feed him again. I make him sound like he's a living thing because he is. This is actually Joe 2.0 because Joe numero uno did not make it. So this time I'm like, we're gonna do it. It's gonna happen. And now I promise I'm gonna go put my feet up. We're gonna go do it right now. So I'm just gonna go sit and enjoy some quiet before I have to get up in 20 minutes to do my sourdough again. It's a lot of work, but I love every second of this. I know homesteading always like sounds glamorous, and then you watch videos and you're like, whoa, that's a lot. But there is something so obscenely rewarding about making your own crackers and making your own bread and finding ways to have like less waste. I'm a nerd. I love it. Like, even look at all that apple scraps for apple. That's a fly on my face. Okay, stop monologuing. Go sit down. I get to make homemade apple cider vinegar. I hope. But Elias took the door off yesterday and it still hasn't gone back on the pantry, so I can't reach or get into the freezer. Okay, go sit down. No more vlogging. Bye.